personal automobile. Probably no other single element in the past century more symbolizes the meaning of American freedom than this one invention. To Americans, it is likely the single most defining measure of individual freedom and mobility.
16 candles.
Free mobility certainly is. It's part of our lives. For most of us, our automobile is the second biggest investment that we make next to our house. And the free mobility, that we use the car for all kinds of things all day long. And in fact, it will continue to be more than 90% of all of our trips decades from now. We need to, and the road system that cars run on is also where 85% of all transit runs too. So with that same road system that is needed for cars to work right, it's needed to make buses work better. So roads are common to both public transit and private transportation.
But the truth is, Americans have always considered personal mobility equal to freedom, because our love affair with personal mobility began even earlier in the days of the horse, which later became horsepower.
No, I think private use of the car has been critical to the mobility in America and worldwide, and it allows us to go where we want, when we want, with whom we want, and to do it any time of the day, 7 days a week. It's very important whether you're running to the convenience store for diapers at 11 o'clock at night, or whether you're running to church service on Sunday, or whether your friends are getting together to go to a restaurant together, or go to a movie, or go shopping, or go to the hospital. I mean, just think of all the trips you take. How many of them are very accommodated very easily any other way except for a car?
Today, many people attribute much of our success and prosperity as a nation to the automobile and the ability of people to move about freely in commerce and recreation. Others even point to former socialist nations that have failed economically and their overdependence on public transportation, which narrows and sometimes even removes choices of commerce.
The free mobility of this country that is afforded to us because of the use of the automobile is one of the keys to our success. And it allows commerce to work, it allows personal freedom, it allows the public to go where they want, when they want, how they want, business to do as it needs to do. I mean, it is part and parcel to the success of this country. It is the automobile and everything to do with the automobile is a huge piece of the economy of our country. I've heard that it's as much as 20 to 25% of the entire economy is directly related to the car and use of the car.
Today in America, the future of the automobile, personal mobility, and the many benefits it brings may be in jeopardy as traffic congestion is reaching an all-time high in cities across America, and while the argument rages over the best way to deal with that congestion. Some favor a stronger dependence on public transportation.
Public transit is a very important small piece of the puzzle. In our 3 counties, where public transit is more effective than any place else in the state, it only moves something less than 3% of daily trips. 30 years from now, the transit planners dream to get that up to as high as 5%. That is still a very small piece. 95% of transportation in this area 30 years from now still will not be on public transit, and yet today we're spending nearly half of all the public transportation dollars on that less than 3% of trips.
There are some who promote the economies of public transit, but others believe the public has been misled as to the efficiencies of mass transit.
Virtually 100% of the capital, which is in the billions, is total subsidy, and 80 to 85% of operating is subsidized. So the fare is whatever it is you think you're paying as a customer is somewhere between 10 and 20% of just the operating cost, none of the capital cost.
Others favor moderately increasing our highway lane capacities as the best and fastest way to relief.
The plan calls for a very small amount of new road construction. At 6% new lane miles in the right places will actually reduce congestion 36% from today's level and accommodate about 3 million new trips today that aren't even on the roads. So that's a major change, a major relief to congestion and accommodation of the new trips that are coming to this region.
To many commuters here at home in Seattle, traffic congestion has nearly reached the point of intolerance.
Well, congestion already is the number one problem in this region, and if we don't make some drastic changes in the current thinking of transportation in Greater Seattle, congestion is the amount of time each of us spend in congestion will double over the next decade or so. We stopped building roads in 1970, and in those days we built a system that had 20 years of capacity upon completion. In other words, we built out a 20-year future. So comes 1990, we've used up all of that capacity that was planned for in this region, the 50s and 60s, finished by 1970. Over the next 2 decades, everything worked. We rode on momentum. And then came 1990, we ran out of capacity.
And some others want light rail added into the transportation mix.
If it worked, I'd be the leading proponent for light rail. The light rail is in general, a huge boondoggle every place it's been tried in the state and, frankly, in the country and around the world. A light rail system is extremely expensive. In Seattle, the projections for light rail, if it works as they proposed, it will move 42,000 people per day. And just to put that in perspective, in the 3 counties that this thing is supposed to serve, there are 11 million trips per day. Light rail someday dreams of moving 42,000. I mean, that's the equivalent of about 4 months of growth in the region. We'll spend 10, 15 years building this thing. We'll use up billions of dollars. It's a rounding area. 42,000 trips a day against 11 million trips a day. In fact, by the time it's done, our trips have actually grown to 14 million trips a day. So it's a very teeny, very expensive mistake.
Losing faith in government's ability to deal with our traffic crisis, Kemper Freeman Jr. began his own study 4 years ago, investing over $1 million to find answers and develop a regional transportation plan to reduce congestion.
What in Gridlock now does is it's a plan that will accommodate the growth in trip capacity. We're growing from 11 million trips a day to 14 million trips a day. That's number one. We accommodate the 3 million new trips in this region every day. We also reduce congestion 36% for everybody, whether you're driving a cab, driving a truck, driving a carpool, driving a bus, or any other vehicle. Your congestion will be reduced by 36%. And we're doing all of this with as little as 6% new pavement in our road system in 3 counties, 6% more lane miles than we have today. It's a very modest investment that produces huge results, and the entire package costs less than we're spending on congestion today.
In 2002, the state legislature passed a bill known as the Regional Transportation Investment District Plan, or RTID, to allow for a regional plan to deal with traffic congestion.
I mean, the RTID's best plan is 50% worse than today. I don't know how those guys can be serious about it. I mean, all they can say is if they don't do that, it'll even be worse than that. But I mean, I don't know how do you expect the voters to pass a package that's going to have congestion 50% worse than it is today? That's where they're headed. It had nothing to do with transportation. It's pork barrel politics. Whereas our plan is generated by an authentic study of where the problems are, and we're fixing the pinch points throughout the state. And all of us, you ask anybody today where are the pinch points, everybody knows where they are. In fact, the study shows those exact pinch points being fixed, and that reduces congestion 36%. It's that simple.
To most people, the end of the age of the automobile and personal mobility will spell the end of the American dream. Perhaps on equal ground with private property rights, personal mobility has everything to do with the future of America and individual liberty.
There are some people who want to slow this country down or do this country harm. Picking a fight with the automobile is a pretty